Hello, 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 and welcome to Property Gamechangers Live on the Property Gamechangers Facebook page. Grab a cup of coffee or glass of wine and enjoy us in conversation with people who've changed the game in property. We're celebrating the power of ethical property investing to really change lives. And we're debunking the myth that you need loads of money to get started in property. And we're inspiring each other to believe bigger, to be bolder, and to be game changers for good. And oh my goodness, what an episode this evening. I know that you're going to love this one. Our property game changer tonight is the incredible Tej Singh of Tej Talks. And he's purchased 50, overexcitement. He's purchased 15 properties in 9 months. And he's taken his portfolio from 0 to 1.3 million, starting with only 40K of his own money. So we'll be diving into that one. He's raised almost £600,000 of private finance in just 5 months. And his hugely popular Tej Talks podcast is in the top 15 on Apple, has a cult following and over 300,000 listens in over 100 countries in just 9 months. And Tej recently found time to also get engaged. Tej has got it all going on, so sit back, relax and enjoy. You're going to love this more than Tej loves cheese. So welcome to Property Game Changers, Tej Singh.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. I've seen you have this series and I've seen other guests you've had, and I hope I can live up to what the other guests have delivered. So I'm looking forward to being here.
Yeah. Well, you are one on your own, Tej, all in yellow. So uncomparable. So Tej, let's just start off, get serious straight away. I need to know, is this really a thing, cheese making, Tej?
So I was thinking about this today, actually. I stopped making cheese like a year ago because I love Italian cheese. With Italian food in general, you need super high quality, fresh ingredients to get the actual taste. And so I was making these cheeses, and actually, if I go to Whole Foods or Waitrose, it's so much better because things are fresh and done properly. So I kind of gave it up because I was like, I just can't match the quality. But it is very peaceful and meditative as an activity, I will say that.
Yeah, when I read that, I thought, is that a joke? But I did remember something at school where it involved sieving stuff through a sieve and then sort of molding it together. Yeah, I can imagine it's pretty interesting. So as well as cheese making, you've also been busy buying lots of properties. But I remember, when I first started listening to the Tej Talks podcast, you had 0 properties, and that wasn't all that long ago. So I really want you to take us back from 0 properties. What was it like getting started?
Sure. So yeah, I started the podcast with 0 properties, and I'm pretty sure I had 0 properties for the first, 6 months of the podcast. I spent most of the time interviewing people like this to get their knowledge and share their knowledge. So that in itself was a big help at the start, right? Because it was like every week, multiple times a week, I would have an hour with someone learning about their strategy, the way they do things, like what we're doing here. And I could ask them everything I wanted on and off audio. And after that, kind of be, an acquaintance or whatever you want to call it, and still learn from them. So for me, the podcast really accelerated my learning. And I didn't really think about that at the start. But actually, I was like, okay, free learning every week for an hour. I like this. And then, the start was pretty, it's one of those things, right? At the beginning, you're like, why am I not buying houses yet? I'm doing like 1 viewing a week. Why isn't anything happening? And then you meet more and more people, you read more and more, and then you kind of understand, oh, hold on a minute. This is kind of like, a baptism by education. You have to really read, use that period wisely, and then got the first property. And then it all kind of snowballed and went momentum from there. But at the beginning, like people who are listening who are new, you're going to just think like, why is nothing happening? I'm putting all these offers in. I'm doing what Ted and Stephanie say. Why is nothing happening? And that happens for a while until it picks up. So we always overestimate what we can do in a short period of time and underestimate the long term. But yeah, like when I started, I was just like, oh, if I can get 1 property or 2, 3, I think I said to someone, if I get 3 properties in the next, 10 months, I'll be really happy. And obviously that kind of changed drastically. But yeah, it was a struggle mentally. However, I learned so much by having that period of meeting people, reading, not maybe doing so much physically, but doing a lot mentally to then prepare for the next crazy 9 months that happened after it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And tell me a little bit about that process.
And obviously that kind of changed drastically.
Oh, sorry. Tell me a little bit about that process of when you were doing the podcast. What would you say were your top learnings from people? Your top takeaways, because you've spoken to so many incredible people, haven't you now, Tej?
Yeah. That's a really good question. And actually, I should do a podcast recapping that. So I will now. Thanks for the inspiration. The first thing is network. So your network, the amount you're networking, the people you're meeting, the people in your close circle, your outer circle, your bigger circle, the people you see every day on social media, the people you follow, the authors you read, your whole network is central to your success. Yes, we work hard and we put the hours in, but if you haven't got the right environment, you haven't got the right people around you, the right things coming into your brain and feeding your brain, it's all pointless. So the one of the three things is networking and the people you hang out with and the people you can learn from. The second one is overestimate the costs and underestimate the profits. So, all my revaluations, they're like 20 grand less than what they actually come out to be on my spreadsheet. And actually, I've got 2 examples of that happening quite nicely just today, actually. But all my build costs are like way higher than expected. My, interest to my investors way higher than actual. Everything is way higher. So they taught me, look, you need to skew everything to make, when you look at a deal, you shouldn't try and make it work. You should try and make it not work. Because if you try so hard and it still works, then you got a bloody good deal, boy, and you better buy that. So that's the second thing I learned from them. The third thing is probably I think a common thing that comes up with a lot of what my guests say is that they fail, they make mistakes, they learn every single day. I feel like it's every single hour, but every single day they are falling over, but they're picking themselves back up again. But when they pick themselves back up again, they got a scar. And that scar is now protecting them from that same injury, from that same challenge. And I kind of learned from them. I mean, I think I knew it anyway for my business, but it's a key lesson to share is that you will get cut over and over and over again. But what you want is to be a veteran. You want to have the scars and the marks and the battle wounds because it means you're prepared for the next time. It also means that investors look at you and say, okay, I can see you've been through all sorts of shit. My money's safer with you because you know how to handle it, as opposed to you 9 months ago when you'd be like, oh, what do I do? And so, that kind of being a veteran, or I'm not a veteran at all, but building up those scars is something they've all done. And it's never, ever been a negative. It's always helped them. So yeah, those are 3 of many lessons.
Yeah, and you put yourself out there more than most. And that's a journey in itself as well, isn't it? To become a leader or be okay with people thinking that you know something, or putting your information out there, hosting your podcast, putting your views forth. And it's been amazing to see your growth. I was at an event recently that you hosted, and your hosting skills are just so good because you just make it feel so natural. But I know how much work goes into that. So, but to go back to the property, so you're starting out on zero, you're learning all these incredible lessons from the people you're interviewing on the podcast, and it's a bit mind-boggling to me to go from 0 to 0, 0 to 1.3 million in 9 months. So I just wonder if you could give us some of your worries about getting started and how you got over them.
Sure. And that event that I hosted was incredible, by the way. Like, that was such a, you're a great panelist. It was such a good event. Honestly, it just, it blew my mind. Some of the worries when I started, I'm never going to find investors. I'm just going to have my 40 grand pot, and in 10 years time, I'll have a couple buy-to-lets and I'll be miserable, which is, I think, everyone's worry. You're like, where's the money? How am I going to find it? And then when you get it, you're like, oh, that's it? It's in my account? Like, what? So it's a crazy worry, but I think you have to have the worry in order to push you and to drive you. Another one of my worries was, am I going to have to do 50, 60 viewings to get one BRR deal? That's me being lazy maybe, but it was still a worry. Like, I love being efficient, so it just kind of didn't sit with me. And I found ways to make that more efficient, but you kind of have to. What else did I worry? I think with my brand, I didn't really worry about haters or people chatting shit or what. I've always just been like, oh, whatever, don't give a shit. So yeah, I didn't worry about that, which is a common worry. You know what? I'm not really a worrier, I don't really worry that much about stuff, because I think it's in my philosophy and in Stoic philosophy that, what is a worry? It's like you have all these worries, 99% of them never happen. You're getting angry and emotional about something that probably, so, that's my answer. It's a bit of a cop-out, but...
No, that's a great answer, because you said you're worried about getting finance. You wondered if anybody would give you finance, and I think that's common. You worried about how many viewings you were going to need to do. That's common. But also just want to say that I really love when you talk about Stoicism in your channel, on your podcast, and in your various social media, because I think that's really interesting. I love thinking about philosophy, different ways of thinking. I've really had a transformation too, and I think a lot of it is through thinking and different ways of thinking, and so I'm really interested in that. But let's go back. So at the beginning you wondered, how am I ever going to get any investors? So tell us about starting out working with investors, what happened, what didn't work, what did work, how did that all work?
Sure. So everything that's ever happened to me in terms of success has basically gone through Tej Talks. It's gone through the brand, the podcast, social media, email list, whatever. Everything comes in and goes through this, or is found through this. So I have to shout out my own brand, because it is the central thing that has given all this stuff you see in all these houses, and all these all the money I've raised is from the brand. So if you haven't got a brand, of course you can still raise money, absolutely, networking, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. I think it's a lot easier with a brand. My first investors, actually, I think I had offer accepted, and then I started looking for an investor, which is kind of like my forte now. It's not fun. It's pretty freaking stressful. I don't recommend it. I keep doing it, but it works. Maybe the pressure is good for me. Maybe it helps. I just put an Instagram post saying, it was FCA compliant. I just said, looking for a loan, get in touch. 2 guys got in touch with me, and actually I'm paying them back in about a month once the refinance comes through. And they said, yep, had a chat back and forth for like a couple DMs, typical millennials, 8-minute phone call, didn't meet them. 2 weeks later, signed the documents, £57,000 in my account.
Wow.
And it doesn't always happen as easy as that. A lot of them do if you have a strong brand, because that they say the 7 touch points before a sale. The brand does 5 of them. So when someone comes to me, it's like, what's the interest rate? What's the security? What's the term? Let's talk. It's not like, oh, what do you do with this? There's literally no questions. I tell them stuff. Look, these are the risks. Here's how you do stuff. But they're just like, those 4 things, like the nitty gritty, and they'll invest. And so, my first investors kind of came from an Instagram story, which is crazy.
Your brand is not giving 5 touches. Your brand is like giving 500 touches. They've gone well over the 7 by the time that they're getting in touch with you on the Instagram story. They've had 700 touches. But that's great. So as well as you've got the Tej Talks brand, but similarly, people could have like a personal brand, because there's lots of property investors that we know that perhaps their personal brand is stronger, and they don't tend to have like a company brand. In fact, you would be hard pushed to name what their company even is.
Yeah.
But yours has been leveraged through your personal brand. So talk to us about your properties. You bought these properties, or maybe let's go to the first one. because there would have been lots of lessons, lots of high points. You finally got your first property, and lots of lessons. So just walk us through some of the highs and lows of property number one.
Sure. So before property one, I go to pre-property number one, which was going to be number one. This was secured via a deal sourcer who I think we both know for £18,000. And it's not exactly a shocking price where we invest. It's kind of like, okay, cool. Now that, if that deal was brought to me now, I'd buy it in a second. I wouldn't even view it. I would buy it. But little old me was so new. I got a survey. It had subsidence, which again, as we know, everything here pretty much has subsidence. At least everything I buy does. I know you buy in the posh cities, so it probably doesn't. But everything I buy is wonky, and that's just it's normal. I pulled out of it because the Rick surveyor, who I don't even listen to anymore, said, it's got subsidence. And then basically, yeah, I should have bought that. Anyways, it was at auction last week and it sold for 40 grand. So someone got ripped off because it was only worth 18 because it was pretty rough. Then a few months later, same deal sourcer bought me a deal, my first deal. I didn't view it. I said, look, your reputation's on the line, so it better be as it's described. He understood what I was kind of saying. And yeah, I bought a deal, bought it for £50,000, spent about 6.5 on the refurb and costs and things like that. Should have been less, but the sourcer wasn't great. Neither was the project management, neither was his builder. So yeah, in for that much, and it got revalued 6 months later at £80,000. So pulled out everything apart from 3 grand, apart from his fee. Highs and lows. Yeah, the high was, like you said, oh my God, I've got a property. Like, yes, I'm on the ladder. I'm climbing up this ladder, this rusty old ladder that breaks every time you try and get another one. Yeah. But that was kind of the main high because it was meant to be bridged with a bridging company. And the broker, who I don't use anymore, messed it up. A week before sort of exchange or completion, it was like, oh, there's no money apart from my, just less than 40K. I said to a family member, look, you've known me for so long now. Lend me a tenner times 26,000 or so. And they said, yeah. And they've been my investor. And ever since, they've basically said, keep the money, give it back whenever you like. So I saved by Family Bank, which is very cheap. But you know what? It was stressful because it's, 160 miles from home. It wasn't a big refurb, but it, became one. We discovered a lintel was wooden and rotten and this, that, and the other. And you know what? It was very delayed as well, again, because the sourcer just didn't know what he was doing. He just lied. So it was quite tricky from a people perspective. The property itself, if I had it now, it would be turned around in 2 weeks for 2 grand and it would be fantastic. But then it took 2 months. It took me having to literally, be very, on the phone, just be very annoyed, basically, and kick my toys out the pram to get any progress. But incredible deal. I say, 3 grand left in. It's paid 300 a month, no, 350 a month for the first 6 months. So I'm almost no money left in. It's a pretty good deal. Was it the most stressful property? No.
Oh dear. That's pretty stressful for the first one.
It only gets worse, people.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But we'll come back. I'm sure we're going to talk about builders again. But take us on to this super stressful one?
Well, I mean, which one? There's 14 of them that have been super stressful. I mean, we can name them all.
Yeah.
Okay, the most stressful has been one of my flips. Now, it had my old build team on it, who were just absolute scumbags. And it's taken 7 months for it to be done. It started off as a 15K refurb. And we both know what a 15K refurb looks like is about 2 months max. Like, you know what I mean? You just know it's about 2 months max. It's a standard new kitchen, new bathroom, replaster, rewire, just the stand, nothing out of the ordinary at all. I mean, it ended up being a £21,000 refurb. So obviously a little bit more than my contingency, just a little bit. It took, like 6 months plus instead of, the 2 or 3 that it should have taken. And even now, when it's finished, If you look at my Instagram story, my plumber's actually repiping the entire house because the original team put in radiators and just put pipes into the ground. So
oh yes,
yeah, so and it was leaking, and we need the heating on just to keep the house sort of, you don't like leaving a damp empty house is cold. So yeah, that's another 600 quid. So now it's 21,650 quid to repipe the whole house. But the issue with this house is we dry lined some of it wasn't plastered because I was thinking purely of the budget. If I'd plastered like 2 walls extra, 2 or 3 walls, a couple more ceilings, this would have sold already at market. But people walk in and say that's like painted over old plaster, or that's not, smooth. And like, now I know exactly what to do with these flips, but because I didn't know and they didn't advise me and they did such a poor quality job, it's got a beautiful navy kitchen in it, but it has been, even when I got the new team on it, it was still like stressful to push it, get things done, and being lied to. And it's one of those houses that is so beautiful, high ceilings, classic coving, huge windows, but I just want it out of my life. You know what I mean? I just want to get rid of this freaking house. It'll make a lovely home for someone, especially now we've repiped it. But
yeah, those extra 600s. But I think that's a really good point that you're making, and it just shows some of the complexities that we all have to endure. I mean, it's obviously not unique to Tej. I could talk about many, but this is not my show. So let's talk about builders, because they're the bane of any property investor's life. Well, when you get the right team in place, it's amazing. It feels like a dream, but very often even the right team can go wrong. So you're only, but can you give us, you've been through it 15 times. Can you give us some tips on working with builders?
Absolutely. So in the book I'm writing as well, I cover like 10 pages on how to find, vet, and manage builders, because I've learned so much. I mean, I met 6 builders the other day on one of my sites to try and test them, and actually, I picked one, and a week later he didn't start. All his lads got stolen or some crap. But out of 6 of them, I only liked 1 or 2 in that. So where do I start with builders? Recommendations are important, and they're a very good place to find anyone in your team. However, the person recommending them has to have used them, not just, I've got an affiliate agreement with them and they've quoted me good prices. I don't give a shit, mate. My grandmother can quote you a good price. She got plaster a freaking wall. I'm not hiring her. I don't care how much I love her. So it's the same thing with builders. Do not take recommendations from people who always tag people in. Have you used them? Have they painted a single wall for you, mate? Piss off then. Stop recommending people you haven't used. You're both idiots in this scenario, right? I hate when people do that. It's just ridiculous. So always ask, have you used them? How many times have you used them? Any feedback? Were they over budget? Was it on time? Ask them all the things that you maybe don't want to ask the builder to their face, like, how was the communication? Did they piss you off? How were they like? So recommendations are really good, but they have to come well recommended, right? Not just from anyone. Reviews are good. A lot of builders don't have websites. They have Facebook business pages, or they're on My Builder or Check a Trade. You can also find trades from there. Look at their reviews. There'll always be the odd disgruntled person, but you want to have some good feedback, and look at their pictures. Go on site visits, feel the walls. Are they smooth? Open the kitchen drawers. Do they open and like, view their refurbs as if you're going to live there or buy the house. The tiling, is the grout in line? Is it done properly? Are things fitted right? Is everything plumbed in? You have to take your time with builders when you're finding them, because I'd rather you wasted 2 or 3 weeks of no refurb interest cost to find the right builder than you got someone in ASAP. So those are a few kind of tips and tricks. Go with your gut as well. Like, some people you meet and you're just like, ugh, I don't want to chat to you. Like, I've met people, I'm really expensive. I'm more expensive than others. And like, and just the way they carried themselves, I didn't even bother with them. And they were like triple price, which is pathetic. So yeah, builders, you got to take your time, and you got to really start them off on small jobs. I've got roofers who I give them a little guttering to do, 200 quid. Can you fix a roof for me? 400 quid. You know what I mean? So I always kind of build them up, basically.
Although that's often not how it works. You need somebody to do a house. And you need it yesterday. But yeah, we've had both. We've been through different sets of builders as well. And we talked a little bit about investors because that's like the holy grail. Everyone's very excited. I mean, 600 grand in 5 months. I think there is something else to be said about that. We can't have covered it all. So is there anything else you want to talk to on that?
Yeah, so the first thing is to say that it took 5 months from me saying I need money to then getting all that money. However, it took 12 months of posting every day on Facebook, every day on Instagram, DMing everyone, messaging people, doing events like this, doing podcasts, meeting people, getting selfies with people, learning, educating, reading, failing until I could raise that much money in that much time. So that's the first thing, right? It's a great headline, and it is. But the reality is it took me a lot longer than that. But I mean, 12 months of work to raise that much money to build a portfolio that you can be financially free depending on your goals, whatever. I'm not complaining whatsoever. And I probably wasn't complaining during it because I love building my brand. The thing with investors is you have to show them what you're doing. So, if I rocked up to an event or just put a post up saying I'm looking for 100 grand, but none of my posts are property, there's no proof of my refurbs or anything I've done, no one's going to give me money. They're going to say, well, it's what society is. Well, you're not on the internet, mate. Where's your online CV? Where's your portfolio? Like, who are you? So you need to have a brand to support and also show what you're doing. People, I don't want to show a refurb. I'll just show the end product. Well, no, because people want to see the overweight kid go to be the 6-pack, lifting, doing 100 pull-ups at a time. They don't want to just see the end. They want to see the progression, to connect with you, to say, oh yeah, I remember when I did that. Oh, that's so cool. So take them on a journey, and don't be afraid to show the ups and downs. I'm showing all sorts of stuff that's happening to me, and some people are like, oh, Tej, do you want to show that in front of your investors? And I'm like, yeah, because they can see that I'm dealing with this, and when they get their payback with their interest, they're going to say, oh shit, you deal with all that crap and you paid us back in full on time with interest despite Corona. We like you, and so do our rich friends. So building a brand, taking them on a story is really, really important. But again, like with anything, you're going to speak to 50 people, 48 of them absolute time wasters, arseholes, irrelevant. 2 or 1 will give you, I don't know what the stats are, 50 grand, 100 grand, something like that. But with each of those 50 people, you're probably going to have 7+ touch points. There's a lot of touch points. There's a lot of stuff going on. So just be ready for the, hi, I'd like to invest 3 grand with you at 25%. I think that's a fair rate. Oh, would you? Okay, bye. So just get used to the numbers and failing a lot. That's a few tips out of many.
And do you have well, first of all, I have to call out that you have an investment website, which I really like. So on your tejtalks.com, is it?
Tej-talks.com, yeah, it's just podcast stuff, really.
But it also has a page for properties.
It does have a page with a few videos on, but my investment website is tejinvests.com, and that's sort of purely the properties, the portfolio, the investment, that kind of thing. I only made that though. I think, how much did I raise? I think I raised 300 grand, and then I made the website, and then sort of carried on. So it definitely helped.
Yeah, the Tej Invest website, because what I was just about to ask you about is what's your process? Because you put the word out there, however you do that, looking for 600 grand, or maybe you say looking for 100 grand or whatever. And then people are going to be saying, yeah, Tej, me, I want to give you that money. And then you need to have some sort of process that you go through with people to see if they're going on to the next stage. So at a high level, I don't want you to give away your trade secrets, but can you give us a sort of high-level overview of how you work with people?
So it really varies on what their original message is and what they're saying. So it's always bespoke. It's always depending on what they've said. But if we go off a generic, hey, I want to invest, which I get, I send them straight to tejinvest.com. So check out the website, check out the investor page. Once you've had a read, we can schedule a phone call. 80% of people drop off then. I chase them, something, whatever. They're just the ones who aren't going to invest. Fine. Or at least invest now. the ones who do and say, oh yeah, I'm looking at that, cool. What I try and do before a phone call, because it's quite a use of energy and time to have a phone call. So I try and keep it as efficient as possible. And to be honest, it's so modern to talk on DMs. Like it's not, I don't know, I think maybe it's a generational thing, but I don't think it's rude or like, oh, you can't talk about serious stuff on DMs. I disagree, but maybe I'm too new school. I'll probably try and say, look, is there a certain amount you were thinking of investing? What kind of interest rate are you looking at? What does it need to be minimum to make you happy? Because at the end of the day, if I can't offer that, I'll tell you straight away. Obviously, some people are like, oh, you tell me, look, blah, 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 negotiation. But really, it's finding out how much they want to invest, what interest rate they're looking for, they're happy with, also the source of this investment. But one of the big things is like, why do you want to invest? What are your goals? What are your ambitions? Is it my earn and learn program so you can buy properties yourself? Or is it like you want to sit on a beach and me do all the hard work and you get a passive investment? What is your why? But another question I ask, especially on the earn and learn, is, okay, say you want to give me 20 grand. How much have you got in total savings? What is your net worth right now? And if they say 22 grand, I say, you're not investing with me. If they say, I've got $500,000 in the bank, I'll say, okay, fine. That's, an acceptable percentage. But I'll never and I've turned people down who are like, oh, I've got 10 grand and, it's all my savings. I said, well, I'm not taking that. Because as much as I know I'm going to give it back and it's as safe as, as what we've agreed in security, I'm just not taking that. So that's something important at the start, is you really need to ask people, what is your overall situation? Because I'm not getting involved if there's not enough of a buffer.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Tej. Some great tips in there about, the sort of questions to ask. And also there's a slight process by which, you're dropping off, because it will be impossible to speak to, not that it's hundreds of people, although it could be, but you need to know who are the serious people. So you're putting them through a process as well, because you're choosing as well. People are choosing you, but you're also choosing them. So earlier on, we touched on stoicism, because you're not a typical young man. I sound like an old woman when I say that, but you're not a typical. You said it yourself. Most people are not cheese making. Well, most people are not cheese making at any age, but that's another story. But and I'm just interested in, what do you think, or how has your mindset changed from when you first started all this? Back before you started Tej Talks, to where you are now. Why do you think you're so different? What is the mindset sort of behind that?
Good question. A lot of introspection needed for this answer. I think it's, Gary Vee says it really well, actually. So he says micro impatience, macro patience. So day to day, I'm in my solicitor's inbox. I'm sliding into his DMs all the time. My estate agents, I'm nagging them. My letting agent, every day, what's the update? Right? Builders, send me pictures every day. I am impatient every single day. But on the grand scale of things, and from meeting me, I'm very chilled. I'm very relaxed. I know we're heading in the right direction. So on the biggest picture, I have that patience, but every single day I have the impatience to make me so patient in the bigger picture. And I think that comes from not being in love or attracted to money. Now, I'm attracted to what it gives me: holidays, nice food, Bentleys, whatever it is. But I know I can live without most of that. And I know how much I really need, to do what I want, eat what I want, go where I want. I know how much I need. And I know it's nowhere near as much as we all have on our vision board, which is fine. And so when you but when you don't just aim for money and it's not the only thing on your mind, you take passion and joy in other things. So every house I buy, it could be 15 grand profit on a flip. It could be 350 quid a month passive income. I don't really care. What I care about is, another kitchen, another bathroom. What color are we doing? Dulux. What's the latest color? That's what gets me excited. Yeah, the money's great. And that's why I've been so bored over lockdown, because it's just been money. And I'm like, what do I do with this shit? I want to do more kitchens and more bathrooms. So I think within what I've said, there are a lot of Stoic principles. But it goes to just knowing your passion. To, you know, for me, it's living a tranquil, good, virtuous kind of life where I'm at peace with myself, at peace with nature, and I have enough to be happy. And I think maybe growing up, you know, money was never a worry. My parents weren't wealthy, but I mean, I didn't spend anything anyway, but it was never an issue. And I guess I learned to save very hard from my family and probably from my culture as well, which we spoke about on the panel we were doing. And so, yeah, money just lost all importance in a way, like X many years ago. And then Stoicism taught me to worry less or not worry too much at all. It taught me just to, have peace of mind. And yeah, I guess it just taught me everything, really, how to live a good life, simply put.
Love that. And I don't know whether there are there principles that you would say that you live by? Or is it not as sort of clear cut as that?
I would say that there are principles that I live by, and they can be summarized probably in some quotes. So my favorite one is by Marcus Aurelius. Says, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. So really, I could stop there because that basically summarizes what we should all be doing. And for me, it's such an obvious thing, but of course the world doesn't do what's right ever. But it just makes you think, right? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I saying this? Why am I reacting like this? Because it's not right or it's not true. Other principles. Now, this is originally Stoic. I think Epictetus said it. I can't remember how he said it, but I know Shakespeare said, nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. So I have a way to perceive. You could say to me right now, oh, I don't think you've bought enough properties or something. Now, I can perceive that as, whoa, what's she hating on me for? Or I can say, oh, yeah, you know, she's right. Or I could say, whatever. So we attach all sentiment and perception to everything. Nothing is good or bad. Someone pulls out of my property sale, hey, I could get 5K more than the next person. Or it could be a cash buyer. Like, there's no such thing as good or bad. Everything is an object. Like, so we attach meaning to everything. And if we can control and observe that meaning, we'll be happy for the rest of our days. So I'd say those two are pretty core principles. I'm sure there's a few more, but those are the core ones.
Yeah, I love that one, especially the second one, because when you can control your mind and the way you think about everything, you're never held hostage. A lot of people are victims of themselves and victims of their own thinking, and their own thinking holds them back more than anyone else could ever could. Now, we all know, Tej, because of what's happened recently, that you're punching way above your weight.
Oh, she's going to love this. She's going to love this.
So tell us about the love story, because you're engaged.
I am engaged. So I met her 9 years ago. I met her, and we've been together for 7 years. So it's a very long time. And we met in university. She went to a different university, but her best friend lived with, well, who did she live with? She lived with my best mate's girlfriend. And then we got to know each other. And basically since then, it's sort of progressed in the right way. At least I hope, at least I'm told it is. So yeah, it's we got engaged in December last year in New York. We both think we had coronavirus at the time because we were so ill. We were just eating pizza all day, basically. So we got engaged in New York on the Brooklyn Bridge, and we're getting married next year in summer, obviously pending no fifth wave or whatever the hell happens.
Yeah. Oh, well, huge congratulations. Moving on, you mentioned Bentleys. Now, that surprised me. I wouldn't have had you down as a Bentley girl. Do you have an actual model in mind?
The Bentley Continental GT, but only the brand new one. I know the old ones actually go for quite cheap. I just, you know what? I think Bentleys are used to looking like posh old man cars, and they're just ugly, and they just look like Boris Johnson, you know, back in the day. And he's just a bastard. So the newer ones, though, I think are aimed at like the new money because they just look like incredible. And actually, one of the people on my podcast has one, a very freaking expensive one. And then when we were recording the podcast, I walked out and I was like, that's a nice car. Can I sit in it? Next thing you know, we're bloody driving around town with W12 engine. I'm getting massaged by the seat like I'm in the Ritz Hotel. And you can just feel the quality. So for me, it's about quality. I think the interior quality and the handmade everything is beautiful. So I'm more of a Lamborghini person, a bright yellow one. I just love the aggression of it. But Bentley and Rolls, the quality is, I don't know who can beat it, really.
So it's a bright yellow Lambo or a Bentley, but I'm guessing you wouldn't go yellow on the Bentley, but would you?
No, the Bentley would be like a dark navy green, maybe like a grey, or it would be very, it's a posh kind of car. I keep it kind of posh, keep it bougie on the Bentley.
Yeah, bougie on the Bentley. Loving it. That would be a great tagline. Hashtag bougie on the Bentley. So we're coming into the end, but I just want to ask you a few more questions. So what do you wish you'd known at the start?
How annoying builders are going to be, and how much they need to be managed, and how extra long things can take if one little thing goes amiss, and how basically I wish I just knew about refurbs, really.
Yeah, and that's what you have to find out the hard, painful way. Even if you read up about refurbs, it's still different when you actually do it.
Yeah.
So I know as well, hopefully I'm not going to put my foot in here, that you have given that, people love you because you just tell it as it is. You tell all the behind the scenes, you tell when things are going wrong, and that's why people really trust what you say. And I know that you're giving some extra teachings, or I believe you're giving some extra teachings, and there's an opportunity for people to work with you on learning about HMOs. Is that right, or am I putting my foot in it again?
No, it is correct. So it's for HMOs because, so James, me and the property duo, we do a podcast together. He's actually renovating his East London HMO. It's a big refurb. We're talking sort of $100,000 refurb. I know in London it's probably nothing, but it is a big refurb. And so we thought, hold on a minute, let's follow the refurb over, 12, 16 weeks. Let's do 5 days going through classroom stuff about property and of course HMOs, because it's in a HMO, fire regs, all that kind of stuff. Let's do, because he does HMOs. Let's do these 5 days over these 16 or so weeks, and let's take people on site every single day. And actually, we're going to be embarrassed because we're going to walk on site and be like, right, everyone, this is done, that's done. And we're going to get there and be like, fuck, nothing's done, bastard builders. And we just know we're going to end up laughing at ourselves and showing people how, the reality of it is. And we think, there comes a point where I'm anti-bad training, right? I'm anti-bad furu, whatever they're bloody called nowadays. But if someone can do it well, why not? And actually, we've kind of said to ourselves, look, we talk about people being bad at training and all the dumb shit they say and all the ads and all that stuff, the ones who are bad at it. Let's actually do it well then. Like, let's not just talk about it. Let's actually do something about it. So it's 5 days. We've got 5 guest speakers. My broker is one of the first guest speakers. We're going to have a huge range of people there. It's 10 spaces max. We've sold 5, I believe, at the moment. It starts in about 2 weeks. Or a week, actually, depending. So yeah, we're doing something physical, something new, and something different to like continue the value add, but on a kind of different level of detail, basically. And we have nothing to hide. There's no upsell, there's no monthly mentorship, there's no, this is it. This is everything. Because, what else have we got? Like, might as well just say as is.
I mean, I know a lot of people have been waiting for something like this from you, so they get a chance to work with you deeper, find out more about what you know, and as we say, not sugar-coated, rose-tinted, it's all real life. So how can people find out more about that, Tej?
So if people send me a DM on Instagram at tej.talks, or they can email me hello@tejinvests.com, or just send me a message on any platform. Instagram is probably the easiest. I can send you all the pack over, and we can have a chat about it. Like I said earlier about the investors, we are asking questions about people's financial overall picture. And if the cost is too big compared to, the overall picture, we say no. If we think people haven't got the right mindset, we say no. We've rejected 2 people already. So it isn't just to take the money. It's a let's have a chat. Let's get to know each other. And then we can see if it's going to work for you and for us.
Yeah, really exciting. And the other big thing that I know that you have coming up is your guides to BRR Book. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar to the training course. I think when I started, I didn't. There are a few good books. There are definitely a few good books in property, but they were always an upsell to a course, or they were all, we're going to leave this detail out. And there's so much I've experienced that is just not in books. And yes, it's kind of in my podcast, but I thought, hold on a minute, for 15 quid or so, whatever the book's going to be, let me chuck in everything I've learned, everything I've done about BRR with nothing to hold back, because, you know, I don't really care. Let me put it in a book. I've always wanted to write a book. I like writing. I love writing. And let me send this out to people, because my podcast is kind of for beginners, kind of for experienced people, but it really, what it doesn't actually help too much is the real beginners, you know, with like no properties or not even any idea. So this is going to fill that gap. So people can say, right, Tej Talks does the ultimate beginners, the book, and then the podcast does this, and then the training does this. So it's kind of just helping everyone on the spectrum. And I've loved writing it. So there will be many more to come.
Okay, brilliant. And what? Just a few more. We are coming to the end, but I've got so many questions that I want to ask you. But one of them that I wonder, I'm not going to say the best, but who's been the most interesting? Because each of us sort of resonate with one person or story or something that really inspired you. Is there anybody like that for you from your podcast conversations?
Nah, they're all right. I don't really. No, you know what? No one. Actually, no. One person, Paul Nicholson, who invests in Liverpool, in Merseyside. He was just interesting because he when he started out, he was like me, total cheap ass, self-manages his property, was like doing stuff himself. He wouldn't every penny would be saved and would be used. And I really resonated that with him, and he admitted that as well. So I really liked that about him. But to be honest, that's just me giving you an answer, because actually they're all amazing. And I've learned so much from every single one. But just that small part of what he said really just resonated with me quite strongly, because it kind of is what I do as well.
Yeah. And was Paul Nicholson the guy who built a whole town? Was that Paul Nicholson?
Basically, yeah, basically.
And what I liked about that story is that he had gone from that position, but obviously when you go on to building a whole town or whatever it was, you've got to go on to a slightly different way of working. You've got to run your business in a slightly different way. You have to begin to outsource and structure and systemize. And so it's great to see people moving from one mode of operation to another mode. Very interesting. And you've been in property now for a few years. You've achieved more than, you know, most property investors achieve in a lifetime, because actually,
yeah, you can tell. Look at me, you know.
It's not showing yet, Tej. Because most property investors only own one or two properties. Only 25% of investors own more than that. Only 4% of investors are financially free from their property investing. And you've already explained that you're making in profit after all the costs and all the mortgages are paid for and all the people are paid back, that every month you're making £3,600 at the moment from your property portfolio already, just after a couple of years. I've talked so much that I forgot my question. but let me ask you where you're going next. What's in the future for you, Tej?
Sure. So yeah, what's in the future? Well, it was going to be buying 3 properties a month from January to June, but of course something happened. Some small issue happened in the world. And so I stopped doing that. I was on track. I was kind of getting 1, 2. It was about to continue. Honestly, because it makes 3,006 to 4,005, I've got an SA, so it varies. I'm kind of not chilling, but I'm waiting to see what happens when furlough ends, what happens to the market. I don't need to buy more. I'm not rushing in. So actually, I'm just thinking about other business ideas and other things I can do in the meantime, and just pushing through these refurbs. So really, I don't plan more than like 6 months, maybe a year ahead. I just can't think like that, because I like change. So yeah, and I don't know, because I'm just watching, waiting, seeing what's happening. Who knows, where I'll be in 6 months.
I just want to ask you as well, have you or would you consider, I'm very excited about multi-unit blocks, and is that something that you have thought about or would consider?
So once I bought 3 a month for 6 months, in June, I was then going to buy multi-unit blocks. Maybe try and do some leasing to the council, things like, like the FRI leases. But now I'm 6 months late. So it's definitely something I will consider. And to be honest, it depends on the market. The market sort of signals to me that I should be doing that. I'll do that. HMO without the humans taking each other's milk and, fighting and all that shit. Buy-to-let on steroids. I love multi-unit blocks. Absolutely love them.
Yeah. I just thought it's a different way of getting volume. And you're definitely, your next step is all about the volume. And you've got your book coming out, you've got your training. And how has property, that was my question, how has property been a game changer for you? How has it changed the game for you and for your family?
I think for me, it's meant that after, what month are we in? We're in August, aren't we? So after being in property for 15 months, I think 5 of them were in lockdown. So I don't really, they're just doing nothing. I've got enough to do what I want, to get an expensive mortgage in London, like there's any other choice, to, shop at Whole Foods if I want to, which is definitely on the vision board. I'm a bit bougie like that. I pretend I think I am. I've done enough in kind of 15 months that I'm good. And because they're buy-to-lets, as you know, they are as passive as you can get. And they really are, once the refurb's done right. So for me, it's allowed me and is going to allow me, once, investors are paid off and money starts really coming in, to then do what I want and launch other businesses. And some days wake up and just saying, yeah, I'm just chilling today. Bowl of ricotta, Xbox in one hand, just chilling.
Go on.
But I think also it's allowed me to help other people for free. 99%, podcast, the book is negligibly priced, but the podcast do my brand to help people and show them, look, you want to get into property? Incredible. Let's do it. But please just look at what the reality is like, and please just look at how hard and difficult it can be. And to educate people. And I have people messaging me saying, Tej, I love that guest of yours. We're building 10 houses together now. Wow. I love your podcast. It got me started, or it got me back into it because I hated it because of a bad builder in it. And just to hear people's success stories. So people, if it's helped you, send me more DMs. That for me alone is job well done.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to you and also the James Sahota, because I love just the way you just banter with each other. It's just top draw. And that's why you're talking about some of the challenges, that you've had in property and in life. So super interesting, and people can check that out on the Tej Talks podcast and also on James's J2 Hub. Mm-hmm. So Tej, there's so many things we didn't touch upon, like your taps and your tiles and Nando's, for heaven's sake.
Ooh, yes.
But we will have to draw things to a close. I just want to thank you for being such a superstar, for being in that game-changing property podcast that we all know and love, and really doing it like nobody else is doing it. I think you're really unique in the way that you put things across. So is there anything else that you would like to leave people with as we draw it to a close today?
Not really. I would say thank you for having me on, and thank you for your kind words. If people want to get in touch with me, they know how to do it. If people want to see what I'm doing, they know how to do it. Just remember, people, property is way harder than it looks. It's way it's not as glossy as the adverts look and as the end product looks. There's lots of blood, sweat, and a lot of tears that go into building these incredible things. So if you want to do it, be ready for an absolute roller coaster that never really ends.
Yeah, that sounds like life. So remember, Tej Talks Podcast. You can get Tej on Instagram. It's tej.talks on Insta. You can get a slice of Tej when the new book comes out, and you can sign up to that, the guide to the BRR book. You have enjoyed this evening. Tej Singh, Property Gamechanger. I want to thank you for watching and for listening. But for now, it is goodbye from Tej Singh. And also, it's goodbye from me. I will see you all next week. Bye for now.